So building the spring-free trampolines, what I normally do is set all of my boxes out in order like this, and then I open the boxes and get the frame pieces. You'll see one of them is right here. What I normally do then is go ahead and set the frame in order how your spring-free is. All of them are pretty much the same, just one design is going to be more oval while the other is more box. When you set them in order, you're going to need to go ahead and find the hardware next, which is normally underneath the mat or the net. You'll find the baggie shrink wrapped with the bolt and nut connected to each other. What you're going to need to do is cut that open, and I normally take the fat ones and the smaller ones, and you'll see the difference between the two, and separate them. For this step, we're going to go ahead and utilize the bigger one. Next, what you'll see I'm doing is I'm connecting each of these posts together. I go ahead and put the bolt through and then tie the nut on afterwards. The nut is going to be on the inside where the net will be. I went ahead and finger tightened all of these bolts. You don't need to worry about wrenching them down yet. We'll get to that step here in a little bit. Next, we're going to go ahead and grab all the feet. There's going to be on this model ones that are straight and a couple that are curved. You'll notice the curved ones on this are going to have the red tag on them and the yellow tag for the ones that are straight. Every unit is slightly different one from the other, but they're all going to be pretty much the same when it comes to the build process. You'll notice that these stems that connect onto the supports for the legs have different warnings that are on them. You're going to want to go ahead and pair them so that way people can see when they walk up to the trampoline. You know, one of my favorite Bible verses is Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. It says, "And whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as unto the Lord, and not unto men." This is why I always try my best to go ahead and give God the glory. He's the one that's given me the brain that really thinks the way that I do, that I try to use to help people, assist people in building stuff like this, and teaching others. So one thing I ask you could just do a huge solid for me is to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Give it a like, and maybe even share it to others. Now at this step, you'll see all of the legs laid out. And here, we're going to go ahead and speed it up, but you'll see the process that I'm doing. I'm just connecting them in, and then inside my pocket, I have the bolt and nut that are the smaller that go into each of the legs. Now this way, what I do is I make sure just to finger tighten and lift up one section at a time. As long as the bolts are in place, you will not have an issue. Just make sure you have it oriented the correct way, where the middle support is correctly on the pipe. If it's not, the unit will not be operational. And you'll see that I have to sometimes mimic them and move them around as needed. Once I've positioned all the pieces, then I go ahead and start bolting it down, and you'll see that next. Alright, so in the bag that came with the bolts, we're going to go ahead and grab that little socket, plastic socket adapter, and the Allen key. Now, these work, but I'm not a fan. I would much more prefer to use my drill, and I personally just like to go ahead and use the ratchet, the Craftsman that I have, along with the socket. They work a little bit better. Now, you're going to first need to go ahead and tighten down the frame. It needs to be nice and snug. You can over-tighten them, so don't bog down on it too hard. Just nice and snug, so that way the unit doesn't have any little flex. You don't want the unit to flex. You want the mat. Next, we're going to go ahead and swap the Allen key and the socket. And the reason being, you do not want to twist or torque down the bolt head, because that washer that I showed you, you need it to be mashed in, but not going cockeyed on either side. And you'll see what it's supposed to look like. If you use the drill and tighten down the nut, the bolt will drive itself in, and you want the washer to look like that, nice and snug. That's perfect. And just make sure each of those, you can see the threads right here. That's exactly how tight you need it to be. Now next, we're going to go ahead and put the net. The net is going to go around the outside perimeter of the frame, and the hardest part, you'll even see, still is today, for me, even though I've done this 1.5 million times, is making sure you do not want this net to be on backwards. Your life will be a living hell if it does. Okay, so what you're going to need to make sure you do is essentially put this thing on upside down. Now, you can watch this video, fast forward. You're going to need to make sure this is done correctly the first time, because if it isn't, like I mentioned, your life is going to be awful. That green tab that you see on here is going to have to align with the green hole that's facing up towards me right now. Each of those holes, there's going to be a green one. You're going to want to make sure these line up. If they do not line up perfectly, you're going to be having to maneuver the net all around the perimeter. It's going to make your life a lot easier if you do it right the first time. Be very careful when you're trying to get this thing over. You'll notice I'm trying to be careful going around each of these posts, because if it snags, it will tear this net very easily, and then you'll have a forever damaged net. So you got to be very, very gentle with this thing when you're putting it in. Now you can see that I clearly went ahead right now and I'm putting down the mat. So it's just there ready to go. Obviously, not all people call it mat. Some people call it jumping pad. It's really personal preference. Next thing I'm doing is I'm putting each of these rods in, and I'm going around to the important ones. Now, it's personal preference. It's just the way I do it. Normally, I like to go ahead and have all the tension rods laid out. I'll just put the green one in for reference sake, and then I'll just start putting them into all the empty slots, and then start attaching the net. It's, again, personal preference. You can really do it any which way you want, but I find that I keep myself more centered on the correct way of doing things when I do this method. So what I do is, after I'm done putting in all the tension rods, then I go ahead and take the rod out of each hole and then reattach it through the net. It just kind of makes it easier for me this way. Once the net has been threaded, and you'll see the balls on each end of these tension rods, then those balls are what you will normally see go into the mat or jumping pad, whatever your preference is. Now you see I have to bend over, grab the mat, and then I'm very careful to make sure that green tab right there is connected onto the green pole. If it's not, you're going to go ahead and have to remove each of these, and it's going to cause grief. Now it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. Normally I just go ahead and do one rod at a time, but if I just feel like doing a little bit more work and less walking around, I'll sometimes do 2 or 3 rods at a time and walk around the unit and clip them in, skipping the others, just going on each of the green tab marks that you'll see, and then just putting in about 2 or however many you feel like. When you get to the very end, you'll notice that it's going to be very hard because you did too many at one time. Some people think it's okay to go ahead and just start putting them in all the rods, just one by one as you walk around. That's not advisable at all. You will damage those tension rods. You have to skip a few of them, or else you're going to cause more problems as you go down the line. Now, as you see right here, I am all finished with that portion. I'm going to go ahead and lift up the skirting for the net, and you're going to have to kind of lift it in some sections, because if you do too much, you're going to start to damage it. I've accidentally cut one net before doing that. So kind of just walk around, push it up, and then what I normally do next is I take these long rods that are going to be going up the side, and then I'll go ahead and kind of insert them into each of the holes at the top of the net, and this will help stretch out the net. So this pole you see I'm bringing over, it's kind of limp right there. What I go ahead and do is grab that little shaft and pull it down, and that's going to make it stiff. Then you just go ahead and slide it right into the insert I was telling you about at the very top. Once it goes into the very end, it's going to be a little bit hard. Just kind of push it in, and it will not leave with ease. It might pop out, but it's very rare. Normally it'll snug in like a bug in a rug, and then you'll be fine. Then what I do after all of those are inserted, then I lift them up and push them into that little hole I was pointing at. So I do apologize this last part. I was really hoping to go ahead and do a good job showing you, but of course my camera was not doing a good job. The tripod that I thought was working, you could see went straight up. But I was trying to show you that you have to very carefully pop that through the hole. You'll notice on the right rod that's over there, you'll see that little clip. Normally what I'll do is I'll take the clip off, push these rods in, and then go ahead and put the plastic clip on over the rod. This is so that way to prevent damaging that little plastic clip that's there to hold on each of these rods. Here I am all done, but you know what I could sure use is some super fantastic people to give me a thumbs up.